from the All Indiana Podcast Network. It's Diversity Focus Today. Now, here's your host, Ricky Solid Gold Clark.
And welcome once again to another edition of Diversity Focus Today. I am your host, Ricky Solid Gold Clark, along with our co-host, attorney Mike Murray.
Good morning, Ricky.
And good morning to you and our lovely and talented Dr. T.
Good morning.
And how are thee?
I am well. How are thee?
That reminds I didn't know you were going to give it back to me. Okay, all right. That's good.
Each is love. Each is love.
That's right. So our program is based on diversity, inclusion, equity, in anything and everything. This program, we're going to talk about all the issues, all the topics, things that you're thinking about, things that you want us to talk about, and we are glad that you are listening to us and watching us on TV, as this program is also on podcast and television on Wish TV. So, ladies and gents, let's get started. Now, our governor, for those of you that are watching this all over, wherever, we are based in Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana. Our governor is a clone of our president, Donald Trump. Our governor is, what's our governor's name?
Mike Braun.
Mike Braun. Okay. We have a major tax issue, property tax issue that's been battling our area for, well, all season. And the governor who just got elected to governor, he was our senator before that, basically ran on the fact, I'm going to cut property tax, I'm going to cut this, I'm going to cut that, and basically he cut some property tax here in Indiana, but he also made it so that the local governments can increase income tax. So if you're a property owner, your property taxes are going to go down, not this year, but next year, maybe. But your income tax is subject to go up as well. So income tax, of course, would include everybody. Property tax is just going to include those that have property. But now, so kind of a switch and bait type situation. So you got any comments from our co-host on that as to what the governor has done here in the state of Indiana with the switch and bait?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of reading about last night, how with the 1% that can alter just from property, from regular tax, by taking away the property tax is not going to make any difference. So it's like we're getting double taxed in a way for those who own property, which I do. So I have realized that my property tax had increased this past year. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens next year. But it's like, yay, but then, okay, how much am I going to get?
Yay on the property tax. But, hey, what happens here in about a year and a half, 2 years with income tax? Well, wait a minute. My income tax, why am I now paying some $100 more in income tax, which you will have taken out of your checks every week or every other week, however you get paid. Right. So that's...
Yeah, so it's just a waiting, like, okay, what's the madness behind? I guess it's madness, but what is the outcome? It's just, can't do nothing about it, right? It's already been signed, right?
Well, you can't until the elections. You can because remember, Indiana has midterms just like the nation will have midterm. You can vote out those that... bringing this into us, and then maybe we can get some relief at some point within the next 2 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. The governor just got elected, so we got to deal with him for 4 years. But you remember the House and the Senate.
It's alters every 2 years.
In most cases, certainly the House is every 2 years. Senate and state of Indiana might be every 4 years, but still, there's going to be a third of those senators that'll be up for re-election in 2026.
Well, you can also make your voice known. You can get out there and protest. You can write to your legislators and work with your fellow citizens and make yourselves known, make your opinions known on these. You used the term, Ricky, bait and switch. I was kind of thinking of it in terms of that little game where you have the 3 cups and the little ball underneath.
You got to watch which way it goes.
Figure out where it is.
Exactly.
Because, basically this is a tax that's going to benefit people who have money. You own property, but everybody got to pay property got to pay income taxes.
Yeah.
So it's going to hit people a little harder who don't have as much money, I think.
Exactly. That's. I mean, Well, anyway, we got at least 2 years to talk about that, and maybe 4 on that dip. But people see. I tell folks constantly, they'll say, well, I didn't know this was going to happen. Oh, I didn't know they did this. But you got to read, you got to watch and listen to the news. You got to know what's going on in your area, because it is going to affect you. Now, like we were talking about with the property tax, okay, if you're not a homeowner, then okay. But the income tax, which the local government will in fact attach to that, because they are losing money on one end,
right.
And so they got to pick it up. So, hey, I'm walking out here, I don't own any property, man, I'm good.
No.
Why is my check getting smaller and
Because
smaller?
they're not getting the money from the other spots.
They're going to get it from somewhere,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're just, damned if you don't, damned if you do. So here we go again, and what can I say?
Well, Ricky, you talked about watching the news and paying attention to what's going on, and I would just add, it's got to be beyond the 10-second sound bites that people get on the news oftentimes. People really got to pay attention. They got to question, they got to read independently of the sound bites that you hear.
Exactly. You're absolutely correct on that. Okay, now they did a little bit, no, I can't say that. I'm switching from the state now to the local, dealing with the potholes, chuck holes, whichever you prefer. We talked about in our staff meeting yesterday about how Brian, our other team member, talking about how they will be starting to fix all the potholes in and around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because the Indianapolis 500 is in May. And so I haven't seen that yet, but I haven't been around the track in that area yet. Right. But I assume I did, in fact, for the first time in, I guess, this year, I did see a crew out patching. And I did notice a couple of streets that I had been down that they had fixed, more so not with a huge patch, I guess you'd call it, but they, a block or a block and a half that they had actually repaved the whole thing. So hopefully, sound like somebody's listening to somebody.
Right.
Hopefully it's us.
Right. It's going the right direction. I have noticed a little bit more patches coming in this time, even from a few weeks ago when I first came. There's some patches, some renovations going on.
So the street in front of my area too has been patched. It's not quite so much a slalom course anymore.
So, and I'm sure other folks are dealing with that throughout other cities and states. So if you've got that, once again, you got to stand up. You got to let them know, and you got to continue to raise Cain until they get that done. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. If you're not squeaky, you're not getting no oil. So you just still be squeaky. So I think we're making some headwaves on that. Do we have any? Oh, the other local thing that I wanted to bring up is here, going back to Indianapolis with the issues with some of the school systems. I'm just going to call them out. Perry Township apparently has a major issues with bullying. We've noticed that over the past year, maybe year and a half, of the different incidents that have occurred in and around the school. We know that there's been a substitute teacher that was attacked at one of the Perry Township schools. Here recently, we had a 12-year-old that brought a razor blade and ended up cutting one of the students, and I guess really for no reason other than he was in the way. There's been other students that's been beaten seriously within the school, and my opinion is it looks like the administration keeps sweeping everything under the rug. They appear to have a serious bullying problem, and I know that happens throughout most schools, but not the magnitude that we're seeing here in Indianapolis at Perry Township schools. You guys, any comments?
I just noticed yesterday there was a table out for bullying, anti-bullying, and now I'm making the connection. I'm thinking that's what they were trying to promote and bring awareness to. They were selling T-shirts about kids being bullied and trying to bring advocacy and attention to that. But I don't know if it was directly related to Perry Township or not, but I was surprised I had seen that. I didn't know that was out there like that. But but how many incidents, that would be something definitely to look into, like how many incidents had been reported as bullying as much as just being aggressive toward these teachers, or is that two separate issues?
I think it's two separate issues. You got the teachers, a substitute teacher, that was roughed up, beat up, however you want to call it. And then you've got the students that have been bullied. And so, I'm sure there's some bullying that goes on in all the schools in and around probably the entire country, because we've got so many school shootings and things of that nature. But as a parent and grandparent, I want to know what's going on. And when these things happen, I want the school system, the administration, to tell me what's your plan? How can you fix this? What's going on? Do you need stronger teachers? Do you need more security? Do you need somebody to come in and teach bullying to both the administration, the staff, and the students?
Right.
There are people that do that.
Right.
So why don't you utilize that?
Absolutely. I think it's kind of that ongoing issue between CYA, don't want to make yourself look bad, don't want to publicize negative things, and being proactive and fully addressing these kinds of issues. But this is not unique to Perry Township.
Right.
It's community-wide, statewide, nationwide, and I would go so far as to say that what we're seeing with students and young people is kind of a microcosm of what we're seeing in our larger discourse when our politicians get up there and talk about each other like they were dogs. There's no holds barred anymore. Rules of civility and politeness and manner out the window. It starts with the adults, and these kids are learning from their parents. They're learning from, their
YouTube
aunts and uncles.
And TikTok
Absolutely. We got to put our foot down and say this is no longer acceptable, and it starts at the highest levels of visibility.
And that's even with that, meme? That show where it's that chicken fights and the kids were acting all up in the movie theater. Because what was it? I'm old, but not
I'm older than you.
But it was that movie with the Mines.
Jack Black movie.
Jack, and they were going into the wrestling scene, and they say chicken, and then all the kids were throwing. It's like, when did this ever happened? Now they're trying to put a restriction on kids coming in there with adults. They have to have
and live chickens.
Live chickens, right? They were bringing chickens in there, but at the same time, I think those are more like 20-year-olds, probably, and college students. So
that's Hollywood.
You can't even go.
You got to blame them and TV, and of course we're on podcasts and on TV. So we as broadcasters have to do a much better job and realize the things that we say and the things that they see, they will try to reenact.
They do. Yep.
Well, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I think there's profound difference between kids cutting up and kind of the over-the-top violence activity. And some of those are kids cutting up. Okay, maybe it's not the most appropriate behavior, but it's not criminal. It's not, it's not that bad. But some of that certainly does spill over into stuff that's inappropriate.
Right. It's just a matter of boundaries, I'm saying. They don't appreciate rules. You go to the movie theater, you sit down, watch, clap, laugh, and leave. You don't throw chickens and popcorn, because there's other innocent people in there.
Right, and if you do, clean up after yourself.
It's
don't damage property.
Right, it's the workers afterwards that have to clean up. But it's just, like you said, there's that different severity, but it starts, as we already said prior, at home, and examples. And then the next realm, and that's essence of, if I want to throw psychology in there, if identity is during that age of development, pre-teenage. It's Erikson theory. He says that they have role confusion or identity. So they're either going to try to find their way or and do well or not. So it's a lot of that going on in identity with kids, whether they follow, whether they be accepted, that I think plays into even being bullied or bullied themselves.
But Doc, how are they going to learn that when we got the parents climbing onto school buses and committing violence against students or threatening students too? These are the parents of these kids.
But beyond the parent, like I say, even though this goes into my parent, it don't even have to be about the parents. I always say it's that primary caregiver. Mm-hmm. So if you have that one, as a child getting to that stage, they're going to find somebody that's going to adapt to their ideas and their beliefs beyond that of their parents. I always give an example like a kid growing up, and this will be real quick. You can never have peanut butter and jelly. You're going to die. And they go to grade school and they see Susie eating peanut butter. And it's like, well, Susie didn't die. They had no concept because that's another upbringing, another issue that, the parent was saying, well, I didn't want you to have it because you're going to have, you have allergies, da-da-da. But she's not going to understand, well, Susie here is bringing peanut butter sandwiches to this class all day, and I want some. Yeah. And it's either going to ask for some or not. But then it could be the opposite. Well, whether you have an allergy or not, you just can't have it. And then they taste it, and they figure out it's good. And then now the child adapts to another ideal.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So the parent can only do so much. As the brain develops, they're going to come up to their own. And you become your own person. But during that rough stage of identity of 13 to 16, it's hard because the brain is still not developed enough to know where they belong and to be accepted because they got to still go back home and be fed and have their bills paid, and then they have to either be on the streets and figure it out. So it's rough. Childhood development is very rough, and parenting doesn't come with a manual.
No, it doesn't.
I can say what's right or wrong, but nothing comes with a manual.
Right.
Yeah, we have to depend on, which a lot of cases, how we were brought up, and utilize those styles and techniques and tweak them and say, okay, this happened to me and so on, what have you. And I think, especially with the younger kids and the younger parents, that their structure that they came up on may not have been as utilized like in our case. I mean, you did something wrong when I was coming as a child. You either got a paddling, a whooping, get that switch from outside, bring the belt, or
And even schools had the paddles.
Yeah,
the principals and the teachers used to
had the paddles and yardsticks and pointers.
Yeah.
So you get popped, and and then they call your parents, and then you get it at school. And in some cases, you get it when you get home. Yeah. Your teacher called and said that you can't keep your mouth shut. You talk a lot. You this or that or whatever you got in trouble for. And you got a paddling there. Well, guess what? Get my belt.
Right. So where do you think that switched? Where do you think that switched to turn into bullying? I think
somewhere along the line, parents, and it might include some of our generation or those that came after us, somewhere along the line lost that discipline feature that we all grew up on. And, we had maybe using more video games as the babysitter than the actual parent. Or when we were coming up, okay, if mom and dad was busy, what did we have? We didn't have video games. I didn't. But we had the television.
Right.
You go watch TV, watch your cartoons, your favorite shows, or whatever you could do. But nowadays, it's a little bit different. And my grandkids, they kind of make sure, they'll be playing the video games because they're teenagers. My youngest is 12. And then her brother, who's 17. So they'll do the video game, but they know the rule of thumb when they come see their grandfather. Now first of all, we ain't gonna have no violent video games because he's gonna look and see what we're playing.
Right.
And secondly, it's so funny because I see what my youngest grandson, who's 17, when he gets out of the car and comes up to the house, and pants go up.
Right. And that goes right back to what I was saying.
Pants go up.
That goes back to what I was saying prior. The parents could be one way, but they have someone in their livelihood like you that's going to take them another way. And so they have a big picture of both perspectives.
Yeah.
Like when you do research, you just don't find the research like certain people that's going to agree with everything you're saying. You got to look at both sides.
Right.
Exactly.
So you, in your grandchildren life, they can have the cake and eat it too.
They know they get to the granddad's house. Okay.
And then as they grow older, they're going to fill in the blanks of what sides of what you did, a caretaking and parenting and guidance that stuck with them. That felt good.
Because I still hear it from my kids who now have kids, and when we have especially when we have a family reunion, you know, somehow the topic will come up about, well, you know, when you and Mom, I mean, you know, Mom would call if we got in serious trouble. The first thing she would say, I'm call your father. I'm gonna tell your daddy when he get home. And so, and you're gonna get in trouble. He's gonna give you a whooping. You'll get it. But see, when I would get home, which would really make them blow their mind, I wouldn't say anything. They would wait a day, 2 or 3 days before they got the whooping. They come up to me and say, "Look, when can I get my whooping?" The pressure, the mind, I don't know when it's coming. And I tell them, "Look, you got in trouble on your time, and you're gonna get disciplined on my time. Okay, case closed."
There you go.
And so as they talk about it, man, that's worse than the whooping.
Yeah.
That is worse than getting a whooping.
Right.
Because I can't sleep, I can hardly eat. I don't know when it's coming.
About what you
when I
did?
lay down, I don't know whether the cover's gonna be snatched over me and I get popped or whatever.
Yeah, I grew up in a house that my parents did not hit us. They didn't spank us or anything like that. The first 2 kids in the family, they did. But by the time my sister and I came along, you know, they changed their parenting methods. But I tell my older siblings it was because they were the experimental set.
Exactly.
We were the perfect set. But I raised my kids without spanking them too. But, you know, make no mistake, my father, my mother were on it. And my wife and I, we're on it, so we're paying attention to what goes on at school and what the kids do in the neighborhood. And when we needed to address something, when my parents needed to address something, they were in our face.
Yeah.
We listened. You know, don't make them have to say it twice.
Right.
Right. Don't let me have to tell you twice.
Don't make them say it again, because you know. And with my kids, I mean, I never absolutely took off the spanking off the table. It was, if nothing else will work, they did not have the option of growing up in my house with no discipline.
Right.
So I told them, it's up to you. You know, you can either listen and learn from us talking to you and, you know, imposing other punishments. But if that doesn't work, you know, there are other things. And that seemed to work. I'm real happy with both my kids.
Yes.
Yeah, well, either way, because sometimes even I would get the look, especially if we're in church, we're cutting up. My mother turn around and give you that look, and if she got to give you that finger, okay, fine.
And then my mother added some sauce to it too, because she would say, "I do not like obstreperous children," which means, boy, you are getting on my LFN. Well, that meant you were getting ready to get it, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess we're all having a sense that the kids are acting out because there's no true guidance out there as far as consistency in parenting, values, discipline.
And respect.
And respect. That's what I'm about to say. Yes, respect is not there.
For self and others,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, because even with my grandniece, I had to help them to learn how to understand her emotions and talk about her emotions at 5-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we probably will include this next piece in our next segment. We've got like less than 4 minutes on this particular show. So, I need to say that if you have comments and you want to chime in on some of the topics, or you got topics that you'd like for us to discuss, you can go to the Facebook Diversity Focus Today on Facebook and get that. We'll have that at the show. Or you can call 317-490-4950 and leave your comments or talk to somebody. And, you know, we would love to hear from our audience, of course, both on the TV side and on the podcast side.
Yes.
So, okay, we got like 3 minutes. Yes, 3 minutes. So, anything else, crew? Wind up this segment.
This is an interesting topic on parenting. It's definitely something I think need to be revisited across our world.
It'll never go out of style.
Right, see what's, how to prepare the next generation. So very, very interesting and well-needed conversation.
Yeah.
Because it starts at home.
It
That
does.
should be our show. It starts at home. Diversity Focus Today starts at home.
Absolutely.
Mike.
Well, and I would say it starts at home, but it spreads to the neighborhood and the community. It takes a village, as they say. But I think we need to look at our community as a whole and think about that whole unit and approach problems together, because working together on different problems, we can solve them, but it takes that respect. It takes that tolerance. It takes that acceptance that people differ. And reasonable minds can differ.
Because you don't want the ultimate, it would be, your children getting locked up,
Right.
or worse, becoming a customer of your local mortician,
Right.
funeral director.
Absolutely.
You don't want that, and you just don't want it to go that far. You want to prevent that. The jails are already full, overcrowded. We don't want to add any more to that. And certainly, the mortuaries are so busy that, they're 2 and 3 and 4 weeks behind just to get to, dealing with a funeral. And I've never heard of that, but if you talk to any one of the funeral directors, they'll tell you, man, we're 3 and 4 weeks behind as far as, and have been for quite some time. So, we need to, we've said, work on that, parents and grandparents and those that are in charge, as Dr. T said. So we got 1 minute. What we got? Anything else? Come on. We got 1 minute. I know
We're
you
good.
guys- Are we good?
We are good. You are great.
So that's a big plus then. So we appreciate you guys listening to us on podcasts and watching us on television. Please continue to tell your friends that we're on Diversity Focus Today. You can catch us on the podcast network or your favorite podcast. And of course, you can catch us on WISH TV Channel 8 here in Indianapolis and outside of Indy, because the station covers the entire state of Indiana. And I would imagine you could get us on YouTube and some of the other
All Indiana podcasts.
All Indiana podcasts. So with that, we're going to go. We'll see you next time on Diversity Focus Today.
Thank you. Be well.